What's going on, guys? It's KY, not Kyler Creative, and I've been in search for the perfect camera, something that is going to do great for video, something that's going to do great for photography, something that's going to help me getting higher paying clients and have great image quality and do all of the things, making it a completely perfect device for me to use for all my content creation. And after a bunch of research, I'm here to tell you, I have no idea what the perfect camera is, but what I will tell you, I have been using the Sony FX3. This is a really great camera if somebody wants to have something that is a hybrid shooter camera between doing stills and some video, something that's going to be a B camera for your cinema camera, or if you are getting to the cinema line of cameras, despite this looking like a smaller mirrorless camera, it holds its own. So here are 5 things that I like about the Sony FX3. We're gonna point something obvious and something that's pretty consistent among Sony cameras, and that's its low light capability. Now, the Sony FX3 is no exception to being a low light beast of a camera. It does have something called a dual base ISO, which means that there's 2 ISO values that it performs the best at, where you get the cleanest look, the cleanest shadows, and the least amount of noise. Now, for the Sony FX3, if you are an S-Log3, you also will get a low base of 640 or your base ISO, and a high base ISO at 12,800. Now, 640 being a low base ISO is pretty standard. It's usually 640 or 800 or something low like that. And basically what it does is it gives you the best dynamic range and the best noise performance that you can have at that ISO setting. Something that's a little bit new to cameras now is at the high base ISO. And that's where the low light capabilities of this camera excel, because not a lot of cameras have a resetting noise floor at 12,800 ISO, which means you can crank that ISO right to 12,800. And once it's up there, you're not gonna get the noise issues that you're gonna have using like a 6400 or 10,000 ISO that you would on normal cameras. Now, the caveat is you could only use these 2 base ISOs to get your cleanest image. If you're using 10,000 ISO, it's gonna look drastically different than using 12,800. So you wanna make sure that you're using one or the other when you're using S-Log3, and then you can just use your ND filter if something's a little bit too exposed, or you could adjust your aperture if something's a little bit darker. The next thing about this camera is its rigging options. This is a very small camera. This stripped down is a very tiny camera. It might actually be a little bit smaller than the A7S III because it doesn't have the viewfinder, but this is pretty much the smallest camera that I think I've ever owned. And the reason why I like it for its rigging options is that I could dress it up and I could dress it down in a multitude of ways. If I want to use it for just a vlogging setup, I can set up just a 24-70, a single microphone that goes on the hot shoe, and that's pretty much it. And I can start vlogging, I can start helping other people with their vlogs and things like that. If I want to have a smaller cinema rig looking camera where it's a little bit heavier, has a little bit more weight to it, I can set it up with a rig that I will show you in another video. And as well as I want to use it as a gimbal camera, I can do that too without a lot of compromises. So this Sony camera being extremely small but still having a lot of really power-packed features is a really good way to make sure that you have the best rigging option. So it's an incredibly versatile camera, even more so than the FX6. Mind you, it has a couple things that it loses out on. In terms of being able to use it in different situations, the FX3 is the way to go. Now, audio, I'm starting to learn, is a lot more important than one thinks it is, and the fact that this camera has a XLR top handle comes in handy when I want to get professional audio. Now with this, it has 2 XLR inputs that are on the side. So if I want to plug in up to 2 microphones, I usually use an XLR for a shotgun and an XLR for a lavalier mic if I want to have 2 sources of audio. And it also has your manual controls on the side. So you don't have to go sifting through your menus to go and make sure that you have the right levels. You could actually do it on the fly, and you can monitor that audio while you're there, and you don't have to go through too many menus and too many settings. What's cool about this is that this top handle actually fits in my hand as well. So if you want to use a top handle, which a lot of people recommended, myself included, if you want to get a top handle for your camera, this one already comes with one. So it gives you a little bit of the features of a smaller cinema camera with having a top handle with audio mics in it. Now, the caveat is if I want to use professional audio, that top handle has to be plugged in or it's not going to work. So you do have to have that handle if you want to use great quality audio and different microphones with a professional setup, but that top handle comes in handy when you want to bridge the gap between a mirrorless camera and something more professional. The next thing I'm going to talk about is its color performance. Now, the Sony FX3 has something called 10-bit color science, and it also has something called S-Cinetone. The 2 things I'm going to talk about. With 10-bit color science, basically what that means is you're going to have a higher quality image, because while you're editing and while you're color grading and while you're looking at a particular video, there's going to be more colors are represented. With 8-bit, you have a little bit of a lower ceiling in terms of how many colors that camera can actually see and process. With 10-bit color, it actually will process a lot more colors than the 8-bit. The easiest way to explain it is that you're gonna have a higher quality image because you're gonna be able to see more colors, you're gonna see more gradations between colors, and it's gonna overall have a nice, richer, sharper image. Now, with S-Cinetone, that is something for somebody that does not like color grading. And to be honest, I had found this out recently that most people don't like to go back and do the color grading, color correction, and things like that. S-Cinetone borrows its color profile from its much older brother, the Sony Venice, and it brings it back down into the FX3. Now, this is a picture profile that I would use if I am going to deliver something that's on a faster turnaround, or I know that the person delivering it to doesn't like color grading and doesn't do color correction. So if you need something that's on a quick turnaround time but still looks great, still has dynamic range, S-Cinetone is there and available on your Sony FX3. And if you're somebody that's used to using something like a Cine 2 or a Cine 4, know that compared to the Cine 2 and the Cine Gammas that are on the older cameras, this is a giant, well-deserved, and a massive upgrade from that. Now, the last thing, and this is particular to my situation because I am using the FX6, is that this is the perfect B camera. Now, the two cameras have very similar sensors. So if I need a 2-angle interview or I need one camera for A-roll, one camera for B-roll, this is a perfect setup for me. Because when I have a camera with similar setup, but something that's a little bit smaller, a little bit more inconspicuous, I can use the cameras as a 1-2 punch. Now, if I need something that's gonna be on a tripod, need something that's on a gimbal, I have those options as well. This Sony FX3 is a perfect B camera to somebody that has an FX9 or someone has an FX6, someone has a Venice, and if you have a Venice, you're probably not watching this video because you probably don't care anything about what I have to say. Or if you have something like the A7S III or even the A7 IV that had just come out a couple weeks ago, this camera is a perfect B camera for all of those things. It also takes pictures. Now, it only has 12 megapixel photos, but if you need something like a quick thumbnail or behind the scenes photo, or this is gonna be your BTS camera while you're using the FX6, which I've used it for, and it's a little bit overkill if I wanna do it that way, but if you wanna use it, and it's up to you. If you want to use this as a B camera, it is perfect for that, is what I'm trying to say. So this camera is a great sibling, it's a great assist for a bigger Sony system that I have, like the FX6. And that being said, I'm pretty much done. People have been looking for the perfect camera for a really long time, but it all comes down to what works the best for your workflow. I needed this camera because I needed a B camera, something that's versatile, something I could travel with, and sometimes I have much smaller projects where I don't need a big system like the FX6 to draw attention to myself. So this is where the FX3 comes into handy, and to be honest, and if you could afford it, I recommend picking this camera up. It will enhance your workflow, it looks amazing, and it is incredibly versatile, so you will be able to do a lot of things with it. That being said, this is the end of the video. If you like this video, make sure you comment, like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. That's pretty much it. There's no perfect camera. Peace.